The administration released several documents last year related to the impact of climate change on national security. This year, it's time to start actually changing how agencies do business and begin integrating climate considerations into national security practices. That's according to a report by Brigitte Hugh. She's a program assistant at the Center for Climate and Security. Brigitte, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mimi. Thank you so much for having me.
You write that one of the key takeaways from the administration's documents is that the national security community is being forced to re-examine its assumptions about how the world works. What do you mean by that?
What my co-author, Aaron Sikorsky, and I mean is that in today's world, we're facing what we used to think were the most extreme weather events, right? So thinking about Colorado this last December, the big fire that they faced, thinking about just over the weekend, the flooding in Brazil that has killed 19 people. So those events we used to think of and things like them, we used to think of them as the most extreme events that we would face. And that's no longer the case, right? That's our day-to-day, that's our year-to-year. So we're having to re-examine exactly what we think of when we think of climate disasters. And that's what we mean by changing the calculus. We can no longer rest on what we used to think. And the IPCC report that came out in August also says that we can't look at the past to predict the future and to plan for the future.
So how does climate change shape and worsen other national security concerns?
So taking Russia, for example, right now, the Russia-Ukraine situation, right? One of the things that is at the top of the news right now is the fact that Russia supplies about 35% of the natural gas that goes to Europe. So if Russia were to turn off the natural gas there, then Europe would be in a really bad way because they don't have a lot of stockpiles for other reasons. So if you're thinking about that and you're thinking about how do we increase resiliency to something like that, to some sort of power failure, to some sort of energy failure, then what we need to be investing in is renewable energy. So climate will, because we're trying to draw down mitigation anyway, that's a win-win for us. And one of the, so it's going to impact the political considerations of every country, Russia included, that we need to be thinking about how we supply energy, how we are preparing for future energy failures, whether it is accidentally or on purpose, turning off gas, or creating more resilient infrastructure to deal with those kinds of power failures.
So I want to go through some of your recommendations. The first is to mainstream climate security in regional strategies. What does that mean?
So we want, so thinking about the way that intelligence agencies are set up, or the Department of Homeland, the U.S. Agency for International Development, they're set up into regional analysis cohorts, or you focus on regions. So each of those regions is usually concerned with the political developments, the economic developments in their region. What we want them to be also thinking about is how climate is going to affect all of that. It needs to be part of the calculus, everything they're doing. So they're thinking about how droughts are going to impact livelihoods in the Sahel and how that could create increased tension where governance is poor, things like that.
So another recommendation is to increase climate security support for allies and partners. Specifically, which allies and what kind of support?
So we're thinking there a lot of information sharing and climate cooperation. One of the easy low-hanging fruits would be to work more closely with our NATO partners. NATO is also increasing and ramping up its climate security considerations in the way that they're preparing for climate security, in the way that they're maneuvering. So doing things like war game exercises that focus on climate risks is really a low-hanging fruit that we can do right now to increase resilience with ourselves and with our neighbors and allies.
Do you feel like the administration is taking a whole of government approach, or is every agency working on its own?
Right now we're seeing, I think it's like we're moving in that direction, right? So the 4 reports that you mentioned at the top, those reports that were released in November did take a more whole of government approach. Those came out of the intelligence community, the DoD, and Department of Homeland Security and then the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, but they were created in a partnership with the science agencies. So that's a good step in the right direction, and we want to see more steps like that.
Brigitte, what do you think is the best way to institutionalize climate change strategies into our national security agencies so it's not this on-again, off-again approach?
Right. One of the key ways, and one of the ways that I think that my colleagues and I push for a lot, is bringing in climate experts. So bringing in people who have the backing in the science into the national security agencies and into the development agencies, so they are there to advocate for climate policies and climate security considerations, right? If you have people in the room who are trained to think about the science, then they're going to pull the science in to their analysis, and that's going to be crucial. And if you have the only thing we can really count on, we can do policies and we can do things that will be reversed, but if you have people in the room and people who are going to be there and have longevity, then that's a strength, right?
All right. Well, we appreciate you being on the program. Thanks very much, Brigitte.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.